welcome to the WOD Pod. Join me as I sit down with Crossfitters, fitness experts, top coaches, professional athletes, and other well-known gym goers to listen to their journey through fitness. Okay, so for Series 3 we got a new mixer and recorder, but I forgot to hit the record button, so you'll have to excuse the very rocky start, but we got there in the end. Episode 1 is with nutrition coach Alex Murphy, who's been helping people with their nutrition goals for the last 8 years. Not only has Alex been ranked in the top 100 UK athletes in the Crossfit Open, but he's had an impressive physique transformation himself. After going one step further, he explores the reasons why people are overindulging and failing to stick to their diet, which I found fascinating. If you're keen to improve the way you eat or hit some weight loss goals for 2025, this episode will certainly be one you'll benefit from. Enjoy listening. Well, you can tell we're in the new studio. You are the guinea pig.
I've just poured my heart out and told my whole life story, and it's not been recorded.
Luckily, we weren't that far in. To be honest, we've done this before.
Yeah,
we may as well just start the podcast from now. We fucked up at the start.
Yeah.
It was Series 1. I think I got 15, maybe 16 minutes in. And Jamie was like, shit.
Yeah.
And then we had to go back and do all the questions again, but it's so hard to go back and do questions when we've both had that conversation. We've now got to fake the first 15 minutes of conversation.
Well, we can catch up. Basically, I had like a fairly sporty upbringing, tried loads of different sports. But I think the main thing is I was always so self-aware of how young I was when I knew there was kind of nothing else I was interested in other than going into the health and fitness space at some point in my lifetime.
This is like the ropiest start to Series 3. But the podcast is sponsored by Prep Kitchen. The podcast is sponsored by WOD Powders. We did a WOD Powders taste test. Alex said it was unbelievable.
It is.
On we go.
Thanks, guys.
So yeah, we're probably going to come into, nutrition will be a big topic. Your fitness journey led into CrossFit off the back of rugby. Mm-hmm. Can you remember your first CrossFit workout?
I do.
What was it?
It was Murph.
It has to be. With the surname Murphy.
Yeah.
With the surname Murphy, there's no way it couldn't be.
And it's the kind of thing that the only time I've seen it topped as like worst entries to CrossFit. We had someone join the gym like right before Christmas, and their first workout in their intro class was Karen. It was like 150 wall balls. And for someone like this was someone who was basically brand new to the gym, and we'd thrown them into that. And then CrossFit Tyneside at the time liked to do Clovis as like a pre-Christmas workout, which is a 10-mile run and 150 burpee pull-ups. And you can split it any way you want, but usually we would like to do it 10 miles, then 150. But I think this woman was just kind of thrown into those two workouts in a class workout. And I'm like, I don't think I've seen anything tougher than that as two workouts to start your CrossFit life.
I think you've got to be careful with people coming into CrossFit. Like what their first workout is can make or break their decision whether they come back again.
Yeah.
Like you want to be challenged, but where you feel like that was tough, that was fun, I enjoyed it, I got a sweat on, and I enjoyed that hour of my life.
Yeah.
If you do 150 wall balls and it takes you an hour and a half, you're never coming back, are you? I remember
she stayed. She stayed for a month or two, and then
I think it like either ignites that fire to be like, I'm never going to be this shit again.
Yeah.
Or that was awful. I'm going back to commercial gym.
Yeah.
My first workout was, it was actually the Open.
Oh,
so I
nice.
joined at the time and they were like, by the way, it's whatever it was, 20.
Short and
it was
painful.
I think it was it 19 or 20? Maybe it's lockdown.
Tell me the workout and I can guess it, I reckon.
It was handstand push-ups, 21, 15, 9. But I can't remember what the other movement was.
The other one would have been deadlifts at 100 kilos.
Yep.
And then it's handstand walk and heavier deadlifts.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Was it 20 or 19?
So that was 18.4.
Oh, okay. I've been doing this for longer than I thought.
It was 18.4 and then it came back as like 20.4. I remember it because that was one that like would have kicked my ass in 2018, and then I did much better in 2020, I guess that it was. But it was a painful one because like I got myself into the second round of handstand walks and got back to the bar and probably only had 9 deadlifts left, but I like messed around putting my belt on and all this kind of stuff and didn't get anything done. So I remember that one well.
Because I actually did gymnastics as a kid, so I actually had handstand walks off the bat.
Nice.
So I came into doing CrossFit my first class. The guy was like, well, we can scale this back. And I was like, no, I'll do handstand walks, which I could. He was like mind blown. He was like, you'll be fine with the handstand push-ups. Yep. So I kind of had no idea about pacing.
Yeah.
I still don't.
Yeah.
So I went in, I just went for it unbroken. I did 21 handstand push-ups. Just
this guy, in golf, you're called a bandit when you pretend like you've not done this before and then you smash the workout.
However, I did the 21 handstand push-ups, and then I couldn't do another one.
Yeah. Because the standard was quite tough as well, wasn't it?
It was like 20:59. I came on to the next round, and I just had none.
Yeah.
And then the guy was laughing. He was like, okay, fair enough. You've clearly never done CrossFit before.
Yeah.
If you can't do one more, and I was like halfway through the workout, like, I've got to tap out.
But going back to your point that you were saying before we hit record about rugby being like a good foundation to go into CrossFit. Yeah, there's some stuff like you can obviously probably do power cleans and squat and do bench press and things. But I would remember being like really heavy in rugby at the time, probably too heavy to be a back. And going along to, because I had a couple of concussions in my final year, so you have to like sit out a couple of months, but you're not injured. So you're like this, I want to keep training. So I went to the CrossFit gym, turned up on a Friday night, and they're like, guys, the class is Murph tonight, which everyone groans. And I'm like, what are we doing? And I remember going out on the second half of the run, the like second mile, and thinking, if this doesn't get me fit, nothing will. Because shoulders were all like bunched up like this, and I was trying to run. But yeah, some things you're great at because of a rugby and S&C background. Yep. But generally, like, have you seen the rugby mentality of like, I'm going into the gym, this has to hurt. I have to hurt myself somehow to do this.
I mean, that's kind of CrossFit mentality in a way.
A little bit, yeah.
There's a little bit there. Did you ever... So, I mean, you kind of went into CrossFit quite early, as in for your age at that time.
17.
Like, how old are you now?
27.
So I would say at the time, it was probably very uncommon to be doing CrossFit 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Most people, in my opinion, were going down the physique training in the gym to look better, the whole Gymshark era.
Yeah, that was it, yeah. So going back to, like, I remember identifying at a young age, like, I love going to the gym, I want to be in that super early. I think my first actual exposure to that CrossFit gym was maybe when we were 12 or something like that. So you're going into high school. They wanted to bring us there as a sort of pre-school summer off-season like training thing. So you go in and just do like basic circuits as a bunch of 12-year-olds, you know, like some kettlebell stuff, some ring rows. And I remember saying to the guy, like, this is fun. Can I come back and do this tonight? And he's like, it's kind of an adult gym, basically. So between that age, 12 and 17, like you do all the bro stuff in the gym and everything like that. So I got through that physique phase very early and then started getting into like, oh, this is proper training. Like this is legit. So yeah, I was very young, but I think that was 2015. So that it was still a niche thing at that time, relatively.
Unfortunately, it took me a long time to get through that physique stage.
I've come full circle and just gone right back to
You're doing it now. Yeah, that bro split training style, I think I did for 7 years. And then I even went down into men's physique route.
Nice.
Competed in men's physique.
Nice.
I wanted to compete. I think I stopped playing rugby, stopped swimming, and I just didn't really ever entertain CrossFit at all. Got into the gym and I wanted to challenge. I wanted to compete.
Yeah.
I'm quite competitive. So I was like, I'm going to go for men's physique. I'm going to, get absolutely ripped beyond belief.
Did you have to do the whole chicken and broccoli diet, Tupperware thing? Did you just do it off your own back or did you have a coach?
So I did it off my own back.
Nice.
Until about 4 weeks out from the show.
Okay.
And I couldn't even think. I was like, I need someone just to basically, it was like having a babysitter.
Yeah.
Like telling me what to do, telling me when, So
I think that could be helpful at that stage.
And I think at that point, I mean, it really helped. Like, I probably would have bottled it all and or I'd have done stuff wrong. And I did 3 shows in 5 weeks.
Oh.
So they were like,
did you
one-on-one
Did you
off.
have time to like rebound in between that or?
Yeah, but again, with Tim, he still does it now. He's unbelievable. And I would recommend him to anyone wanting to do it. I would never go back there because it was too restricting on my life and I lost too much. It didn't. Now I weigh up the rewards versus the sacrifice. For me, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the time he was so helpful. So I can't even tell you whether I did a rebound or not, but he was just it'd be a daily photo. It would be, okay, you need to eat this today and then send me my macros, send me the food. And I was basically a robot for 4 weeks.
So off the back of you sending a check-in photo every day, he would adjust your calories up or down depending on how you looked?
Yeah, or it would be like weight, how I look, and then he would ask me questions and tell me how you feel. Like, are you absolutely dying? What can we get away with? It was more like just trying to keep me, I suppose, on the straight and narrow up until peak week or 5 days out, and then it was just whatever happened at that point.
Was it more physically challenging or mentally challenging to get down to that?
Mentally, easily. Like, I was still going to work. I was still like doing what I needed to do, but it was like, how much do I want it? Like,
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, I know that when I'm stood on stage, I'll be annoyed if someone looks way better than me because he'd be more dedicated.
Yeah.
And I was like, I said to myself, I'm doing this once and once only. After I finished it all, I was like, nah, Tim, let's do it again next year. As soon as
Do you get like quite a rush off it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I get equally as big of a rush from doing a CrossFit workout in a comp.
Yeah.
And I can do that, have 5 beers and a pizza, well earned.
I think that's why it appeals to everyone now, doesn't it?
But I can stay in good shape. I don't have to like peak week for a CrossFit comp. I can just rock up and I get the same adrenaline rush, the same endorphin rush from a CrossFit comp.
Yeah.
That ticks all my boxes, and then I don't have to live a restrictive life for 16 weeks prior.
Yeah.
So now I have found that, obviously I'm never going back to bodybuilding.
Nice.
But yeah, at least you managed to avoid that phase.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I was just a meathead from the very early age. The dieting down doesn't come naturally to me.
So this podcast episode is sponsored by Prep Kitchen. Prep Kitchen are providing high protein, super tasty meals. My favourite one at the moment is the firecracker chicken, 500 calories, 40 grams of protein. Make sure you check them out. I'll put a link for them in the description below. On with the episode. Although, like, I've seen when you were competing at your sort of like peak CrossFit stage, you were absolutely diced.
So a day in the life at that stage looked like probably wake up about 5, half 5, walk or cycle to the gym, coffee, coach for 2 hours, maybe do a PT session, do my morning cardio, walk or cycle home, maybe have like a bowl of oats, do some laptop work, walk or cycle back to the gym, do like a 2-hour training session, have some food like quick before coaching for like another 4 or 5 hours, and then walk or cycle home again. So like I couldn't keep weight on at that stage, and that's probably why I never maybe reached my full potential in CrossFit, because I was so lean, very aerobic, very good at gymnastics, but weak as piss.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that was just, I knew at the time it wasn't sustainable. I was also a student, so like had a student loan plus income from working and PTing. So I was like, everything's all good here. I don't have to worry about anything else. But like I knew the second I graduated, I was going to have to turn a little bit more professional and you know, take coaching more seriously in order to grow that. So I think I made the most of that time where everything was stress free.
If there's ever a time to get really good at CrossFit, it's when you've got very little responsibilities in your life.
Yeah, and like, people made that clear to us in the gym. So me and a couple of the other guys who were similar age were like very, very competitive with each other, driving each other all the time.
I know that's the thing now. You think like business is now a big part of your life. It's like, how do you then factor in training like a pro athlete into that?
Yeah.
It's like something's got to give.
Yeah, that's why I've found myself going back to physique stuff. Because when I was competing, you know, we found like with a couple of the pro athletes, people who were with the programming company I worked for at the time, they'd be like training at pro level, but they still had a job. And then they kind of worked a way to get like away from the job and take this thing more seriously. And they thought, oh, I have no job now, so I basically have to do more training. And it's not the case. It's basically just that you've had a huge stress lifted off your shoulders, so you can sleep better, you can take naps in the middle of the day, you can recover more, rather than like adding more load to your training program, which I think is what everyone assumes it's going to be. Yeah.
Now I don't have a job, I can train 6 times a day.
Yeah. I've been down that road as well, and you just end up absolutely destroyed from it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
When and why did nutrition become an obvious career path for you?
Good question. So I think it switched for me because when I was competing and coaching off the back of that, the easiest thing was to kind of find people who were like 5 years behind me or 3 years behind me. That's where most people start coaching. So for me at the time, it was guys who were maybe a little bit younger, as I was just coming out of uni and I was 23, 24. Guys who were like 19, 20 and are like, I want to compete at that level as well. I need help with this skill, or I need help getting stronger. So I was like programming in a competitive world, and I went to all the training think tank seminars, and I was super engrossed in the sport side of it, which is really fun still. But just around COVID and lockdown, when I was coaching everyone had home gym setups, everyone had everything they need. And people were saying to me like, I want to work with you. I want to go to the games. I want to compete at this level. And it was challenging for everyone at that time, but I found that like I had all the knowledge and tools to write them the training program that was going to work and the best thing ever, but no one was able to stick to it. And it was really frustrating for me at the time because I'm like, we can make this work. You just need to keep training. But people were finding reasons to miss sessions and go missing for weeks at a time. So the whole time during lockdown, I was thinking and researching, like, how do you just get people to be more consistent? Because they're telling me I want to achieve this, but then their actions are just not consistent enough to show up with that. So I started like going into habit formation, behavior change, psychology, which is all the stuff I kind of neglected in my course at uni. But when you get into that stuff, like, how do you just be more consistent? The best place for all those skills and tools to fit is nutrition. Because I think most people that I work with love going to the gym. That's like best hour of their day. They don't miss that for the world. But when it comes to nutrition, they'll do like a week or two at a time and then go, this is too hard, and they'll fall off. So that's where that all sort of shifted into naturally.
So when you look at the different elements of lifestyle, I guess you've got like the mindset, you've got your nutrition, you've got your training, even just like your motivation. Would you say that nutrition is the most important
for
like to stay on the track with your goals?
I think it's the toughest to stay on track with, and part of that is because I think we've been taught to do it in such a wrong way, and I'm at a little bit of a barrier with how I feel about things like ultra processed foods at the moment, because I think on one side that's a net positive for a lot of people. Like, there's so many people out there who just don't have a basic food education to know like how to cook things at home and what like food is processed and unprocessed. And there's people that fits to, but there's also then people who get scared into like, I can't eat anything that's been through any form of process whatsoever, and I have to be so all or nothing. Like, my diet has to be clean and perfect all the time, or I might as well not even bother. And I think that's the only place we act like that. Like, there's a couple of great examples. Like, if you spilled a little bit of coffee in the morning, you wouldn't just throw the rest of the cup on the ground. Or if you were 5 minutes late for work, you wouldn't just quit your job that day. But like, that's how we act in nutrition sometimes. Like, I've had one cookie, I might as well delete the whole packet now.
Yeah, you say right. And like, you would never do that with training.
No.
Like, if you had a bad day at the gym, you wouldn't go, right, I'm not going to train for the rest of the week. Yeah. Like, so yeah, in that respect, it may not be the most important, but it's probably the most likely to fail. Therefore, that's what you should put the most emphasis on.
Yeah. And when it's most important, I don't know if your goal is performance or your goal is energy or your goal is a physique thing, it's probably the only thing that you haven't worked on yet.
When it comes to physique, very little of your physique is down to your training.
Yeah.
I mean, my training wasn't actually that good the year I did men's physique. And the fact that I had such low body fat made me look absolutely jacked.
Yeah.
I was 65 kilos or something, and I had very little muscle mass in relation to the previous 3 years. But because I had very little body fat, I look, everything was emphasized. I looked amazing. All that I did was basically diet.
Yeah.
And at the end, I think for the last 4 weeks, I was barely doing weights.
Yeah.
I was literally doing cardio, and
that was how I got in that like competition shape as well. It's like the constant being on your feet all day. And then, I would always neglect strength training, and my coaches knew that at the time. But I think somewhere you get into CrossFit and all of a sudden performance becomes the goal, and you think, this is really cool. But I think in the back of your head, for most people, they're almost always still doing it like, I'll disguise my goal as performance, but I'll still eat like under the calorie budget and everything just to get myself looking a certain way. I know that a couple of games athletes do that. They're under so much stress because they're like, I'm going to be photographed at the games next week in like no clothes whatsoever. And they tell their coaches like, cut my calories down, please, or I'm going to eat less.
Which is crazy.
Before the games.
Like, that's the only time you should ever want max carbs is before you're about to go and attempt to win the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
But you're probably right. And I think it's like, if you stood on the starting line and you look the most chiseled, in a way, is that like a...
Does it do your confidence?
Is it good for your confidence, but also possibly bad for the competition when they see you looking absolutely jacked? Then they think, oh, he looks like he's going to beast me. Yeah. There's a bit of mind games going on there. So
Matt Fraser, like, I didn't even see that much after he retired. Like, he was always in good shape when he was competing, but he looks like properly chiseled now that he's kind of finished competing, and he's not got to pound calories the way he did before.
Well, Sonny Webster, now he's not doing his weightlifting. He's now just gone physique mode, and fair play. Like, you've taken away the goal of, weightlifting in the Olympics, and now you're just training to have fun and enjoy life.
Yeah.
Like, it shows that you can do both.
Yeah.
How long have you been a coach for?
So I got my level 1 in 2017 and I got my PT qualification in 2016. So pretty much since then. Yeah.
Good 8 years then?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And how does your business model work at the moment? Is it like app based? Do people sign up online?
Yeah. We're pretty much completely online based. I have a really reductive, like simple model because I think that works best for coaching people. When people sign up, we have like an initial one-to-one consultation where they're kind of filled out a form and it's like, okay, here's the main areas I'm struggling with. Here's my big goals. And then we'll just talk through a plan together because I think it's really important to have my clients involved in that process rather than just going, here's what you do, just go and do it. Don't ask me questions. Like, okay, how do you think this would work? Let's go and try that. Because I think that's all that coaches can really do. Nutrition can be a little bit more dialed in and scientific, but when it comes to behavior change, like that person has to be bought in as well. So I'm not going to push them to something that they're not willing to try straight away. But in terms of that, we do everything that like a normal nutrition coach would do in terms of here's your calories, here's a rough step and activity target. We track things like sleep and a food journal as well, like similar to yourself. Like, did you notice any triggers today? What was your hunger like? What was your environment, your self-talk like? But alongside that, we would also have a couple of educational pieces, like here's how to fix the all or nothing mindset. Here's how to try and stop stress eating a little bit. Here's how to manage your nutrition when you're traveling and all those kind of things. And I think those would be the bread and butter of our program that makes it like, you've probably seen this plan or something similar to it before, but you've not known how to do it consistently enough. And I think that's the main difference. So everyone's got their plan on the app. They've got a couple of training and educational pieces that are specific to them. We get on a one-to-one call every 4 weeks to see how it's going. We run group calls on a Wednesday night, check-ins every Sunday. So yeah, I always say to people, they're kind of like bulletproofed. There's nowhere to hide in our program almost.
Which is good. Cause if you're in, you're in. Like, and you've got to then explain why you're not or why you've not.
Yeah, exactly.
No, which is good. Have you always had the app or has that been a newer thing?
It has. So like I said, when I was programming initially, I think I remember getting my first 2 or 3 clients and trying to just type out programs on Google Doc and it takes forever. And then someone put me on to TrueCoach, which at the time was called Fitbot. And it was really like, it's so different than how it is now, but it was so simple. And I remember listening to a podcast with the guy who started Fitbot and he sold it just before the pandemic, which you think like, wow, great time to kind of get out and exit. But he said he had all these people like testing it, like Sean Pastuch from Active Life. He was like an early guy with a load of clients. So he's like, can you test this software? Give me feedback. And he would always ask him for a new feature. And at the start, the owner was just like, no, it needs to do 2 things. It needs to be super easy to use on the client end, and it needs to speed it up as much as possible for coaches. So I've like tried a couple of different softwares that have been like, they can track metrics a bit better. Like they can input your weights. If they know that you squat 100 kilos and you just type 5x5 back squats, it'll tell them the weight to use, which is clever, but it takes so much more clicking and tracking from the coach. So TrueCoach is incredibly quick for me to use, incredibly simple on the client's end.
Which is what you want.
Exactly.
Is it a monthly plan or is it like, do you sign up for a year or are you locked in?
So we launched a premium label service September this year and it's gone really well so far. And it's more for people who need an enormous amount of support with weight loss. We do have like a 3-month plan, but we figured like there's a lot of people who kind of get to the end of 3 months. They need to extend probably to 9 months. At 9 months, most people are ready to leave our program if they haven't already, which is what I want long term. I don't want people to feel like they're reliant on us all the time. But I figured there's a huge gap there with people who really need the 9 to 12 month period. And so we're going to do a lot of the work for them. Like in the first 8 weeks of that, we do all their meal prep. Like we send it to their front door. So one less thing to worry about. And then we do some cooking lessons, some group stuff like that as well. But I think, that upfront just to go, right, I'm into this is so much better because there's a lot of people who have tried and failed so many things in the past. And when you say like, hey, look, join this, it's a month at a time, quit whenever you want, they'll quit when things get tough.
Yep.
And there's so many clients I've seen who've tried a million things in the past, like Weight Watchers, transformation challenges, and they literally just need to get past week 3 or 4 to realize like, okay, that was just 1 week and I'm going to keep going with this process. So the 12-month plan has actually been huge for getting a lot of clients past that hurdle to then start to go, okay, I actually believe I can do this now and I'm into this and I'm going to keep coming back no matter what.
See, I'm sure companies like Weight Watchers almost want people to never keep failing, and it's just a vicious circle of just going round and round.
I heard a great expression once that was like, if you're sick and you go and see a doctor, and 12 months later you're still sick, the doctor hasn't done his job, and you're not going to say, "Wow, what a great doctor he was." So I'm actually coming up to it with a few clients in January who I'm like, "Hey, look, I think we're almost done working together, or in the next 3 months, I would like to see you graduate." So definitely around the 9-month mark, everyone should be having a conversation with me, and does, to go, what do you actually feel like you need before leaving here? And most of the time that's like, I think I've learned everything. I just like having someone there on the other end to give me that extra layer of accountability. But ultimately, I want people to take that for themselves someday.
Which actually is, a great way of looking at it is, okay, this is a 12-month investment, but at the end of the 12 months, you'll have done it.
Yeah.
Like, if people wanting to lose weight listening can't see that as enough motivation to go, okay, it's going to take me 12 months, but if I stick with it for the 12 months, I'll be done.
Yeah. It's
like
sooner. If you weren't locked into a student loan and a 3-year degree, I would have dropped out in Freshers Week.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. And I know some people do that, but my parents were like, that's absolutely not happening for you. And I got to the end of it with a degree that I wish someone asked me this once. One of my clients was like, if you were to go back to uni, what would you do? I said, I'd probably do my degree, but I'd focus on it more, because I got into personal training and CrossFit coaching and started learning all this stuff in practicality and getting paid for coaching that I already knew how to do. And I was like, what do I need this degree for? But at the time, there would have been loads of good stuff I could have extracted with psychology and nutrition that I maybe didn't get the most out of.
I think a lot of people who go to university are not necessarily seeing the value at the time.
Yeah.
It's possibly later they go, oh, yeah, there was probably some value in that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's becoming less and less valuable, I think.
Yeah, I've seen, because I looked through your content and looked through the way that you coach, and you kind of go back a step and focus more on why people eat unhealthy foods.
Yeah.
Rather than you like unhealthy food, great. It's why are you eating them? Why can't you stay consistent? And then look at the other factors, so mood, stress, sleep, things like that.
Yeah.
Can you explain like how that became a routine or a route into your coaching?
Yeah, so it was similar to how I was trying to get people to stay more consistent with their training programs. Like, if you can just complete this 8-week strength cycle, you'll hit a PB here. And then I started to realize, like, okay, this is best served to people with nutrition, because that's where we struggle the most. And I can't remember where I heard it, but like, every human behavior is just to solve an emotional need. So when I got really deep into this just when I moved home from Newcastle to Edinburgh. So this is just after the pandemic. And I was starting to go down rabbit holes of like addiction and things. Because when I see someone, I drop Maria to work at the hospital all the time. And the hospital she used to work at, there's people outside with missing limbs in wheelchairs lighting up fags. And like,
I saw the exact same scenario the other week when I went there.
And everyone like you and me would think, if that's not a wake-up call to stop smoking or stop drinking or doing whatever addictive thing you're doing, then what is?
Yep.
But the thing behind addiction is like, it's almost unconscious. It's not a choice to be addicted to something. And it's just to solve an emotional need. And I think a lot of people haven't been taught how to solve emotional needs without drinking, eating, smoking excessively. And they're always like the quickest hits that you can get, like immediate dopamine satisfaction from sugary foods, from smoking, drinking, scrolling, all that kind of stuff. So I don't remember your question, but I think that's the biggest thing. Is like,
it's more like you're focusing on the other factors that may influence why they eat unhealthy. Yeah. So anxiety, stress, other factors in their life that they've got going on. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, when it comes to nutrition, coaches just go, eat this.
Yeah. Why can't you do this? Yeah.
This is the diet. Stick to these calories. Track it on MyFitnessPal. You've got no excuses. Well, if it was that easy, everyone would download MyFitnessPal and just eat a clean diet or eat a diet that suits them. There are so many other factors, which is really, I would say, the majority of your focus point in your content is, I get that you're eating for other reasons. Let's find out why you're eating for those reasons and explore them. I've
been down that road as well. Like, the pictures of me when I was competing and really diced and like nothing on me, I was still eating terribly at the time. Like, I was under eating for training because I wanted to be super lean. But then also the weekends, like, I had a really bad guilt eating complex. So like, I wouldn't eat, let's call it junk foods for lack of a better term. I wouldn't eat that in front of other people. Like I would eat it in my house on my own sometimes, or like order a huge Domino's pizza at the weekends and eat the whole thing and all the sides and all the desserts and everything. So at the time I was like, this doesn't seem good. This doesn't seem healthy, but I'm just going to keep training and that'll be fine. And it'll just keep burning off. So once I stopped competing and shifted to coaching, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to look at these behaviors eventually. Otherwise they'll catch up with me and I'll get very, very out of shape very quickly. But I think a lot of people blame themselves, especially when there's coaches and people in the industry who've like just built their whole life around fitness, and it's great for them and it's easy for them and you can't understand why you wouldn't do it. A lot of people are like, why can't I just behave like that? Why can't I stop eating? And I always say to people, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Like, it's not your fault that all the fitness content in like the early 90s and 2000s was like shame based. It was all like, if you're fat and ugly, go to the gym and you'll just be ugly. And it's all these kind of like, nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. So everyone's been preconditioned to like, you have to be this certain way, otherwise you're not worthy. And then there's Weight Watchers. There's the kind of ultra processed foods narrative that I think is, 50-50 on whether it's net positive or not. So there's all this stuff that's coming. There's like, Uber now that will be pretty close to going, we know you're thinking about food. We're just going to deliver it to you. So there's more and more temptation. There's more and more blame passed on to people. So it's no wonder they kind of feel like shit off the back of it and go, well, this is just me. I've always been this way. I'll never be able to fix it.
And I imagine that's the majority of scenarios. The majority of your clients are in that boat of, I can't get out of this this rabbit hole of doing the same thing over and over again. So this podcast episode is sponsored by Prep Kitchen. Prep Kitchen are providing high protein, super tasty meals. My favourite one at the moment is the firecracker chicken, 500 calories, 40 grams of protein. Make sure you check them out. I'll put a link for them in the description below. On with the episode. What would you say your top piece of nutrition advice for a CrossFit athlete would be?
CrossFit athlete or your everyday CrossFit member?
Both.
Okay. So the CrossFit athlete, I don't really work with competitors as much, but I would say they probably need to eat more than they think they do. And they would probably need to get the timing of it a little bit better. Because I think for them at that stage, they're either fueling enough, which is great, or they're like me, they're under fueling, being really lean, not very strong, and getting injured all the time, which is what happened to me. So start fueling enough for your training, start eating more protein. And I think then timing is a really important part for that. Because especially if you train multiple times a day or you have multiple events in the day, I think one of my biggest learning experiences, which you alluded to, is like when you're not competing to look good in a physique, you go, I can eat whatever I want. I'm doing 3 workouts today, 3 15-minute workouts, which means I need 4,000 calories and it's all brownies and pizza. Maybe not quite, but that would be what I say to people is just because you can eat whatever you want doesn't mean that that's the best fuel for you to eat in that moment. And then for the everyday CrossFit member, I would say the opposite thing, where again, they think like, I did this 9-minute deadlift and handstand push-up workout, so I need to go and eat like a pizza and a whole tub of ice cream. That's one angle. The other angle, I would say for the people I work with, it's just like aim for 7 out of 10 and perfectly imperfect rather than trying to be amazing, clean diet, whatever that means, all the time, and then berating and shaming yourself if you have one cookie.
If you aim for a 7 out of 10 in your training and your diet, in every element of your life, you'd be happy. It's often, I'll have some weeks where I'll be terrible and there'll be a 1 out of 10. Mm-hmm. But then I think off the back of that, right, next week I have to be a 10 out of 10. Yeah,
so you train harder.
I'm trying to train harder. When actually I should just go, nah, it's a bad week, aim for 7, and I'm probably going to hit it more often, I think. Okay, and in terms of structure, how important is structure to nutrition?
For prepping or for like getting your calories right?
So I suppose like a coach for men's physique would be structured to an absolute T.
Yeah.
Your average person trying to lose weight, would that be overkill? Like do you say the more structured the better? Or is there a point where it gets too regimented where they've got no choice and no freedom? And
so from my experience, there's probably 80 or 90% of people who need like 5 to 10% wiggle room, right? So for most people I would write nutrition for, I would alternate high and low days. Really simple. Like instead of saying you have to eat only 1,800 calories. That's your target. Just hit that every day. I'll say like, look, sometimes go to 2,000, sometimes go to 1,600 if you feel fine. So giving them flexible targets is a lot easier than, I was 50 grams over my carbohydrate target today. I failed, quote unquote failed. It's like, no, just widen the goalpost a little bit. So I would say flexibility is better for 80 to 90% of the population. I then have maybe 5 or 10% who I'm like, they just work better being strict. They know themselves well enough to go, if I veer slightly off track, it's going horrendously. But I actually don't mind being really diligent and really dialed all the time. So I would say that's very few people who work like that. And they're typically high performers, highly strung, like business owners who like everything to be extremely dialed and they need to know everything all the time. But for, Jackie or Sarah at the back of the CrossFit class who wants to feel a little bit better, lose a little bit of weight, they want to be like pretty close to their calories Monday to Friday and a little bit flexible at the weekends, but without blowing it completely out of the water.
So I was thinking, which one would I prefer when you said that? And I would, if it wasn't nutrition, I'd have gone for the really strict regimented routine. But I think I'm in a variety of different scenarios where I would struggle, as in if I'm at a work event or a social, or I'm in lots of different scenarios where it would then throw me off course, and then I would be, right, I've gone off course, what's the point?
Yeah.
I think in nutrition, I would need that
diligence.
Yeah, I would need that kind of 15 to 20% limit flexibility so that I can still stay on track. Because for me, I would want to be ticking a green box every single day. So if I end up having, a few drinks at a work social and a pizza, I can still rein it in so that I'm still, falling in and I can still tick that box.
It's like how wide is the path? Because everyone's like, I want to stay on track, but their track is like so narrow that they're just going to fall off all the time. But to your point, you'll go through seasons of your life. And I don't think anyone really thinks about this enough. They just think I should be dieting and losing weight 365 days a year for the next 4 years. And like I said, when I was a student and I had no responsibility and I had like all this cushy student loan and like side income, I had
living the dream.
No
That's
problems whatsoever. It was easy for me to be overly meticulous with my training and my setup and my prep for qualifier workouts and the food that I was eating. But now that just doesn't, like if I put my focus there and my energy in there, it's going to take away from my business, my relationships, the experiences I want to have in life. And I think people need to realize that happens on a yearly basis, maybe even a quarterly basis. Like we've been talking about it. I had a couple of holidays this year. So like the 8 weeks before each holiday, I'm pretty dialed in and I'm looking at my nutrition more closely. But to expect myself to come back from that holiday and then be able to put in another 8 weeks where I'm really focused on losing weight again just isn't that realistic. So we talk about push and pull phases in our program all the time. And one of the issues is like that. Most people finish a holiday in September and just kind of like give up until December. So they've put together 3 months of like being off track. They'll go for the 4 or 6 weeks in January, February and just fall again. And like there'll be seasons where you're really pushed with this and there'll be seasons where life takes over. But again, it's just about, are you on track more consistently than you're off track, and not putting too much pressure on yourself to think like it's going to work all the time. I had a client who's been struggling for the past month or two with accountancy exams. And she's like, I can't count another fucking calorie, Alex. So I'm like, okay, just go off. And like, we just took a mindful eating approach. She didn't track any calories. She just kept focusing on her sleep. We got her a bit more active, into the gym more often. And I just said like, look, your goal might be to like stop when you're full. I think is a big breakthrough for a lot of people. Like you don't have to know exactly the calories that are on the plate, but if you kind of get halfway through your food and go, like, I'm full, I don't actually need to finish this. I've just been programmed to finish it. That's a big breakthrough for people. And she's finally got the scale to kind of break in the past few weeks and keep ticking down to her lowest weight since she's joined us, which is great.
That was kind of leading on to my next question was, have you had any clients where it isn't working and you've hit sort of a brick wall with them and they're going, I can't seem to do this and I can't stick to my targets? What do you say to them at that point?
Yeah, I said it. It's happened. Like no one has 100% success rate. And if they tell you that, they're probably lying.
Yeah.
So we've had clients who've struggled more than others. I always try and adopt the approach that like I'm an eternal optimist. I like can't be pessimistic. I think that's a retaliation to my dad, who was always pessimistic in like a good way, like critiques things and is like, this could be better, but
or thinks worst case scenario in every outcome.
No, he's not. That's Maria. She's a worst case scenario person. But my dad was always like, you know, if I thought something went really well, if I played a great game of rugby, he'd be like, no, you missed 2 tackles there. So he was always like, this could be better, or just check that you don't believe this is the best thing ever before you buy it.
Which isn't a bad thing.
It's not. It's a protective thing. So I understand that now, but I hated it at the time. But I'm an eternal optimist. So I'm like, they might be looking at one side of this and going, the scale is not working. But I'll be looking at like, okay, your waist circumference is coming down. How's your energy? And a lot of the time people won't look at their fluctuations, especially if you're someone who knows the scale fluctuates all the time. It might not be going much lower as much as you want to, but if it's not spiking back up 2 or 3 kilos every time and you're just kind of hovering around this weight, I see that as an improvement. You're probably working on your food relationship a lot better and you're not bloating so much and feeling like crap. And I think you don't really want weight loss. You don't want to lose a certain amount of kilos or pounds. You want the feeling that losing those pounds or kilos will give you. And there's oftentimes, I've looked at transformation photos, progress photos of people who I've worked with, and I've been like, God, that's incredible. That's like a different person, but there's not that much difference on the scale almost. So yeah, I think just realizing that success is multifaceted, and you and I have both been at body weights where our life probably isn't that great and we're like hating things 100%. And hate how it feels. So just kind of reminding them like you're doing this for other reasons as well.
Which is actually more important than the weight. The weight's not the factor. It's not. I've been looking what I think is unbelievable and felt the worst.
Yeah.
And I think it's finding that real sweet spot where you are feeling great, you can train to a good standard.
Yeah.
You're fit and you look at yourself and think, I don't look bad.
Yeah.
I think when you find that and they kind of all come together, I think that's when you've nailed it.
Certainly. And it like from where I was as a skinny, lean, competitive CrossFitter, I could never get down to that body weight again. But if I lose like a couple of kilos of weight now, I look much better because I've spent the past 4 or 5 years just going back to bodybuilding training and stacking on loads of muscle. So there's going to be different points in your life, always.
People say carbs are king. Do you agree?
I think they're probably third on the priority list. I think if your goal is physique or competing, no one, in my opinion, is eating enough protein. And if they are, they're probably using too many supplements to get there. Yeah. So I always work it out as like, okay, protein and fats, they're your kind of basics. And if you want to feel fuller for longer and not feel hungry whilst you're on a diet, take your body weight in pounds. That's roughly the amount of grams of protein you want to get. Your body weight in kilos is roughly where you want your fats to be. And they wouldn't change too much either way.
Yep.
So get those two in place. Then look at like roughly where your calories are and just determine how many carbs do you need to keep your activity levels and your sanity levels a little bit as well. Yeah.
Okay. And I suppose in terms of going to the gym, going to a CrossFit class, pre-workout, what are some good snacks that you would recommend people?
I don't know. So I would give people flexibility with snacks. I would say like, look, if you want to eat a couple of Haribos or a pack of Jelly Babies before going into the gym, that's fine. That's going to work for you. I would say the thing for timing is like, definitely try and limit fats. So like a Snickers bar or something really heavy like that is going to weigh on you a bit more. But if you want something sweet, I don't mind people using more processed foods, I guess you'd call them, whatever you want to use around that time. I think that helps people sometimes with their sanity. But yeah, generally limiting as much fat as you can in that sort of 60-minute window before and after a workout, and kind of making it a good amount of carbs, a little bit of protein here and there. Goes a long way. How
important is stress management?
Oh, that's the big one. I think.
Okay.
So stress management is definitely
I wouldn't have had that down as, I look at my week and it's probably up there. Probably got a fair amount going on, but I would say.
So where would you score your stress right now? Like if it was to say on a weekly basis, out of 10 being like on the verge of burnout, where would you say it is normally?
It would vary between 5 and 7.
Okay. But do you manage it well?
Probably not.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
It doesn't, I would say it doesn't necessarily, I'm not going, okay, I need to, it's not, I'm not going to the gym and I'm not eating horrendous. So I'd say I don't identify there being an issue.
Yeah.
but could I manage it better? I'm sure I could.
So I would ask those two questions back to back on my intake form, like rate your weekly stress or your average stress, and then how do you deal with it, like manage it. And so I've had people who would put like a 2 or 3 on that scale, and I think you're really chill, and they're like, no, I'm a huge stress eater, because like 2 or 3 just sets them completely off. But I've had like doctors, business owners, people like that who are like, I'm an 8 out of 10 all the time, but they manage it really well. They've maybe tried medication in the past, or a lot of people will have come to me after like about therapy or of working with like a coach in some way. And I've had to turn a few people away because I'm like, look, I think you need, to be polite, you need therapy. You don't need like nutrition coaching.
Yeah.
So I would say the management of stress is good, but I think a lot of people, myself included, thought that like to avoid stress eating, you just have to have an absence of stress. And when you have an absence of stress, you become really sensitive to it. So like anything would set you off, like the room being too bright or hot or something like that. So I think people could definitely be doing better jobs of managing it, but it's about changing your relationship with stress and realizing it's a tool for growth as well.
Okay, and if people are finding they're super stressed all the time, what would be your kind of main advice, or how would you suggest they manage it?
Mitigate or meditate. So mitigate, I would say if you can remove the stress, consider doing that. Unfortunately, you can't quit your job and send your kids away. I mean, maybe if you can, go for it.
Go for it,
yeah. But like a lot of people will say, it's my kids and it's my job. Can't do anything about that. Let's maybe be creative and think, how can we manage that? I don't know. But I would say if you can't do anything about the root cause of your stress, just go and find some meditative practice. And that doesn't mean like going on a yoga retreat or sitting there in your living room doing headspace. Golf is a real meditative thing for me, because actually you find like it's kind of similar to when you're snatching. If you're stood over the ball or over the bar and you're thinking about what you're doing, something's going to go wrong. So golf for me is getting out there, and when you're in the zone over the shot, like your mind is going blank. You're not trying to de-stress, you're just letting it happen. And then between shots, you're walking around, you're kind of thinking about things. And that for me was my journey with headspace and meditation, is realizing like you're not trying to just get negative thoughts out of the way. You're just trying to see them coming through your mind and passing through and going, and then your attention's going somewhere else. So meditation can be reading, can be watching TV, can be anything for anyone, I think.
I suppose a lot of people spend a huge amount of time thinking about these stressful things and they don't ever have a time where they're not thinking about nothing. You know, it's nice to, people say go to a spa. That's because when you're at the spa, you probably don't think about much. You know, you sat in a jacuzzi, you know, very little's going through your mind. It's finding things like that clear your mind.
We've got a question at the end of our check-in form every week that just says self-care. Like, did you do anything for yourself this week? Did you go out for a walk? Did you go for a coffee? Did you find some time for yourself? And there's a notable difference at the bottom of that feedback form when someone hasn't done any self-care and they've just kind of left that. They'll almost always go, this didn't go well this week, or I let myself down here, there, and other places. But when someone said, yeah, I've done this for my self-care, at the bottom of their form, it's always like, here's my wins from the week. Here's what I'm going to focus on being better at next week. It does so much for their mental space, even if they don't realize it.
So this podcast episode is sponsored by Prep Kitchen. Prep Kitchen are providing high protein, super tasty meals. My favourite one at the moment is the firecracker chicken, 500 calories, 40 grams of protein. Make sure you check them out. I'll put a link for them in the description below. On with the episode. Okay, quick one for the Hyroxers.
Nice. Not an area I'm like hugely specialised in at all.
Have you done a Hyrox?
No.
Okay, if you were to do a Hyrox, or if you've had any of your clients do a Hyrox, what advice did you give them on fueling and nutrition for a race?
So from my understanding, a Hyrox, you could be like an hour and a half doing it roughly.
About an hour and a half.
So at that point, over the 16-minute mark, I would say you should consider something. Like you should maybe have a water bottle somewhere that you could quickly guzzle some carbs and definitely some electrolytes, because they're mostly indoors. They're ferociously packed events. It's not like you and 9 other guys on the comp. It's like 150 people going at once. So there's a lot of heat in the air. So I think maybe at the 60-minute mark, especially if you are a heavier or more muscle-bound athlete, you'll want to be putting electrolytes in. You'll want to be considering like a quick gel or something, definitely. Yep. But I would say you should have most of your carbohydrate loading. People think it's like, you know, I start carb loading on Monday for the park run at the weekend. And like, you don't have to do that. But I'm right in thinking you could be going pretty early in the morning for a Hyrox.
You could be going at 9.
Yeah.
9.
So if I was going at 9, let's say worst case scenario, I would be considering being up at like 6 to have a bowl of oats, something like that is going to be heavy enough but digestible by 9 o'clock.
Yep.
But I would be doing most of my carb loading the night before with like just a big bowl of pasta or something like that.
Yep.
And generally we would have people train low and compete high. So we wouldn't actually put people's calories super high or carbs super high in training, because then when you get to the week of the event, you want to have somewhere to boost your carbs up a little bit.
If it's high to begin with, it can't go much higher. You're just
going to feel heavy.
You're going to be on that start line thinking,
So practically, I'm actually doing a performance nutrition webinar for a friend tomorrow. So the advice I would give people is like maybe 50 to 60 grams extra through the week on your carbohydrate intake total. And then the night before, add like an extra 100 or 120 on top of what you would normally consume.
Yep. Since the Brownlee brothers announced that their pre-triathlon meal was just a massive fish and chips, I start doing that before my CrossFit comps now. The night before, it's just an excuse to go and have a big fish and chips, but good amount of carbs.
I find that so interesting. Like, did you ever hear the John Jones thing? You know, the UFC fighter?
No, John Jones, but I didn't.
So he was like regarded as the greatest UFC fighter of all time, and no one could beat him in his prime, and still can't really. But he's like a week, and obviously you do a camp preparing for a fight, like 8-12 weeks maybe, really intense training and dieting and weight cutting. Not so much for him. But he says like a week before the fight, before someone's about to like try and physically kill him, he'd go out and get like completely drunk, go to all the strip clubs, do a load of drugs. And then he gave himself the fallback to like, oh, if I lose next week, it's fine because I self-sabotaged the week before. And that's what I see a load of people doing with their nutrition. Like giving up really quickly or sabotaging to go like, oh, I knew I couldn't do it in 3 weeks' time. So I think that was just a little sidetrack, but it's so interesting that the Brownlee brothers kind of, not to the same extent, but they almost like give themselves a little bit of a release or a relax in some way.
To be like, I suppose they've probably trained really hard up to the point of doing the triathlon. It's like a little treat we've got there.
Yeah.
So
I know Finn Russell loves a Five Guys before a match, which are like, this guy is one of the best rugby players in the world, but he just does not look after himself like an athlete. And his psychology, I can't remember the term for this, but if you read Conscious Coaching by Brett Contreras, no, he's the glute guy. There's a guy who wrote Conscious Coaching, and he talks about all the people you're going to kind of meet, the archetypes. And I was one of these like anti-mistake people. So when I was playing rugby, I never really reached my potential in rugby because I was always like, don't drop the ball, don't miss a tackle, don't get turned over, all this, like don't make a mistake. And I saw all these other kids around me who didn't try as hard as I did, didn't really care as much as I did, but they were so talented. Like they would play better if they were hungover because they'd be like, fuck it, what's the point? If we lose, we lose. If I drop the ball, if I make a mistake. So Finn Russell has that attitude. It's like, it's a mistake, doesn't matter, move on. So I think that's just another interesting way of knowing, like, how do you respond in certain scenarios?
It was 2022. I was out in Marbella. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Finn Russell was also at the same complex I was at.
Was he having a good time?
It was 2 weeks before the World Cup.
23.
It's 23.
So it was last year.
It was last year. 2 weeks before the World Cup.
You're kidding.
And he just had another baby or a child.
Yeah.
And he was with his girlfriend, and the rest of the Scottish team were like partying in south of France.
You're kidding.
And he said, like, we have a bit of a party prior to the World Cup. He should have been there. But he was like sending videos of his coaches of him like in the gym, because our hotel complex had a gym.
Yeah.
And then he finished and he went straight to the pool. And we were like, for the first couple of days, I didn't really go over and speak to him, but towards the end I was chatting to him. But each day he'd have at least 10 pints. I mean, this is 2 weeks before the World Cup.
That's so funny that I brought that up and you had that story.
No. And then I think I said to him before I went.
That's why we lost in Marseille, South Africa.
Yeah. I forgot the team that you were playing first. Was it Tonga or something?
It was South Africa and Marseille.
Was that the first game?
Yeah, that was the first game. And South Africa looked at that game and went, if we win this, we can kind of chill because we'll get out the group basically, and we don't have to beat Ireland. Yeah. But we went to the game. We went to all the group games last year for Scotland. And and the boys, I'm half Irish, so I support Ireland. But I was there on the Scotland group games tour with my friends. And we're there in Marseille the whole weekend. And all of a sudden we're like getting ready, going back to our hostel to then go to the game and like putting our jerseys on and things. And suddenly the guys start to go like, I think we can win this, I think we can win this South Africa game, but they never had a chance.
Well, Finn said the first game we play, we're all going to be extremely hungover. I think they hired
it was brutal.
They hired like a big villa in south of France for the whole team, and they said it was partying.
They're well, Dave Cherry jumped down the stairs. So Scotland's hooker, after the South Africa game, which they lost basically, which was not good news, he like Superman jumped off a flight of stairs, cracked his head, and was sent home from the World Cup for that. So yeah,
what a way
that's the national team.
To exit. Okay. What's your number one top tip for people who don't consume enough protein?
I think it's one of two things. Add in an extra meal or just enlarge in your quantities. I think everyone's kind of used, if you're on a routine of like I eat 3 times a day, most people probably don't get enough at breakfast. That's somewhere to go.
Yep.
Change your idea of what breakfast might mean. I think a lot of people are like just cereal or oats, but like try and broaden that.
Cereal's so good, but it's also terrible
digestion wise.
Well, no protein, high sugar, high calories. It's like it
not
takes
great
a big chunk of the rest of your day up. Like I just stopped removing that, and I was like, okay, I've got so much more to play with throughout my meals.
It's also one that like I'm bad for, like cereals in a box. I can't just have one bowl. Do you know like a serving size on the back of cereal box? 45 grams.
Yeah, or whatever it is.
No one's having that, or at least not sensibly. So I would say start with breakfast. Look at like changing your idea of what breakfast means, and then if you're already having like reasonable meals like chicken, pasta at lunch, and then I don't know, some like beef or lamb at dinner, just look at maybe like adding extra quantities of those, because that'll do a lot for you in terms of snacking. And like you said, when there's calories that start to take up your day, suddenly you get to the end of the day and you're like, I've had no protein, but I've got loads of carbs and fats in my plan. Like if you hit anywhere near your protein target, like just go and plan a day where you eat that much chicken and that much beef and that much eggs, you won't feel hungry at all. So I would say adjust the quantities or start looking at breakfast in a bit more detail.
Yep. And your number one top tip for people who have a sweet tooth, who love a dessert on an evening, like you're near the end of the day.
This is me. You're talking about me.
Well, I was actually asking for me, but it's like, I don't know. What would you say is the best approach?
I don't know if I found a best approach. I'm a big fan of zero, like Coca-Cola Zero. I think that solves a sweet tooth, especially in the afternoon for me a lot of the time. Like we have a fridge stacked full of Coke Zero, and most people are like, oh, that's not good for you. But there's zero caloric damage that it does. Like it's pretty good in that sense. I would just plan it into your day, and I would go for like smaller options. So like, for example, if we bring a packet of Oreos into the house, it's gone in like a day. It's not lasting. So I would always, it's a small short-term tactic, but like keeping the stuff out the house then forces you to get to like 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night when you finish dinner and you're on the couch and you're like, it's not a big barrier, but like I have to put my jacket on, put my shoes on, go down to the local shops and find something. Do I really want it that bad? So whilst I don't think that's always that's a tactic, it's not necessarily a strategy for fixing your sweet tooth, because you'll always be faced with temptation somewhere. That's where I would start. I would just say, look, don't bring it into the house. And then if you want to go out and get it, that's one place you could go.
Georgina thinks I'm addicted to ice lollies. Because it's like peak December. It's cold.
Yeah.
On an evening. To get my craving, I have like a Valencia Orange M&S ice lolly. I think they're
weirdly specific.
Yeah, because they're the best. I mean, I'm an ice lolly connoisseur. I've done every ice lolly you can imagine. Like, if I'm pushing the boat,
well,
what's the
number one? Go to your top 3.
My top 3 ice lollies. So there's a bubblegum one, which is like a multicolored. I don't know whether it's ice cream or ice lolly. It's like a hybrid. Yeah, both. That one's up there. Yeah. The Valencia Orange, it just tastes like a fresh orange, but it's cold, sweet, 37 calories.
So I know a lot of before you get to your third, I know the Ulster rugby nutritionist does that in their preseason, because like the guys will finish a field session, have to go to a meeting, go to the gym, go back to another field or skills session. She's like, we make them these like kind of higher calorie, higher sugar ice lollies, because it's so hot they're not going to sit down and eat food or a meal or anything. So I don't know, performance hack, just maybe remember that one for the comps in the summer. And maybe a WOD fuel type ice lolly.
Maybe. Lime Calippo.
Yeah, of course. It's got to be in there.
They're good. I think I ice lollies because they're low in calories.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time to eat. Like to have a clipper, it can be 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
And by that point, I've got my sweet craving.
Yeah.
I just wondered whether you had any more that could maybe get me off this ice lolly addiction.
I don't know if ice lollies are your thing. I think there's worse things to be addicted to.
Definitely.
Like they're lighter, they're lower calories. If you plan that stuff, like that's not hard to fit into your calorie plan. And if it solves the problem, I think that's great.
Coming back onto stress, anxiety, mood, I'm actually launching a new product in February.
Nice.
Called Optimal State. And it's it's a blend of nootropics, mushrooms, basically stress relief. I'm gearing it it's got some focus ingredients. So there's one called Brainberry, which is like hugely studied. It's more for, I want to create the product for a competition day, so a CrossFit comp day, to A, calm nerves, and B, put you in a focused state where you're less distracted, less, all over the place, panicky, to take away that anxiety of competing. And a lot of people, it initially started because I wanted to create a new pre-workout and people didn't want stimulants.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, I'm not going to create a pump pre-workout because that's for bodybuilding. And you definitely don't want more lactic acid buildup in CrossFit. Yeah. And then I looked at the focused nootropic side and I thought there has to be something for a comp day, for a high rocks, where you just want to calm your nerves. Potentially that could be something that, I don't know, people who are experiencing a stressful day. Yeah. I mean, I've started having one scoop a day and it's like, it's great. I feel just like a lot less jittery, a lot less, I've had a morning coffee and I'm a bit like anxious and I've got so much to do.
The amount of caffeine. I remember my last ever like competitive event I did. I was trying to PB on a certain lift. It was a complex. I was thinking like, this is my last ever comp. I might as well just go and try and bleed for this. And I took a scoop of pre-workout, like C4, with a Red Bull to knock it down. I was like, I think I'm going to die.
So that's really good if the workout's max 5 minutes. But
it was a lifting event, so it was perfect.
It was a lift.
But after that, just like I was done. The come down was surreal.
Yeah. Well, I say to people on a comp day, if you ever have pre-workout, just have it for your last workout. Because if you then have a massive crash and you feel horrific, it doesn't matter. You've done it. But yeah, I know I've had some people like coming up to my WOD stand, taking some pre-workout sachets, smashing a sachet, and this is like the first workout of the day, and I'm like, you may not want to do that because you're gonna have a huge caffeine crash.
You can see who's an experienced competitor from the way that people walk around the room. Like how many knockouts have they had at this stage? The way that they, I always found this, because again, it was like similar thing. The training for CrossFit for most people is not that difficult. It's like, how do you manage yourself on comp day? And like there's people who carry events off the floor with them, and I always found that like having a break, so go and find the cardio equipment, do the same sort of duration of workout if possible, and just cool down, walk through your process of what that was like, where you maybe went wrong, because it's, have you ever read Endure? It's this Science of Endurance book, and Chris Williamson had the guy on the podcast, Alex Hutchison I think is his name. And he was talking about like a trial they've done where people are just doing like a bike trial, kind of like a Zwift class. Like you're cycling really hard. There's a screen in front of you kind of showing you a Tour de France type route. And they'll flash up like a really, really quick 0.5 millisecond image of a smiley face or an unhappy face. And whether people saw a happy smiley face or an unhappy face completely altered their chemistry and how difficult they found the task. Wow. So I think, managing your emotions, managing your stress and kind of your reaction to, because no one's going to like, if you get a no rep in the middle of the event, you're not going to go, that was great. Let's keep going. Yeah. I think that's a good product to bring out. And if you mentioned about not having a ton of acidity in your muscles and panic and stuff, have you looked into like sodium bicarb and beetroot juice?
I'm working on another product for another brand, which has got both those in.
We'll keep that for now.
But yeah, when I do the Optimal State, I'll send you a tub. You can give it a try.
That'd be cool. As long as there's not a dangerous amount of sodium bicarb in it, because I
don't think I'm putting it in Optimal State.
You have to microdose it because you're like, why is that a supplement? But it does, like, it's alkaline, so it lowers your acidity levels. But you have to be so careful because it is like explosive on your bowels.
And when you shake it in a bottle, like,
yeah. So my friend like tried to take half a sachet of it or something, and then
he knew about it.
Yeah, it was like 30 minutes. He couldn't leave the toilet.
Wow. new for Series 3, a game called Higher or Lower. I'm going to ask you 5 questions.
Okay.
Potentially ask you 5
So
questions.
this is just opinion based. It's not like right or wrong.
No, it's right or wrong.
Oh, fuck.
So I'll ask you the question. If you get it right, you move on to the second one. If you get to all 5 to the end, then you win.
What do I win?
You just become
Just
the
win.
first one. You become the first one to complete Higher or Lower.
Okay.
So, first question. If you get it wrong, then that's you done.
Yep.
Game's over. The average age of a CrossFit member is 36 years old. Higher or lower?
Lower? I feel like 36 is bang on the average.
Correct. Lower. 32 is the average
Okay,
age.
that's coming down.
Okay. Next question. Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You has been played over 5 billion times on Spotify.
Lower.
Lower, 2 billion.
Okay.
Still 2 billion.
Nice. 2 billion's a lot.
Okay. Question 3. There are 400 CrossFit gyms in the UK. Higher or lower?
When was this survey conducted?
I think it was like 22.
400 in the UK? Yeah. Higher.
Higher. There are now almost 700.
Wow.
It's crazy,
I
innit?
heard a stat about how many went out of business post-lockdown, and it was huge. It was like 45% or something.
They're now all Hyrox affiliates.
Yeah, that's it. So I know there's a trend to that. But
20% of the UK are overweight. Higher or lower?
higher.
What would you say as a percentage?
If you're going off like BMI statistics, probably 80%.
Yeah, 60%.
60, okay. That's not bad.
Mate, you're smashing this. Final question. Plant-based milk is 50% more expensive than dairy milk. Higher or lower?
Higher.
Higher, 60% more expensive.
Wow. Not by much.
Unbelievable.
Not by much.
I need to make these questions harder, clearly. Okay, that's good though. Smashed it.
Yeah, pleased with that.
Okay, moving on to your personal goals. What are your personal goals for 2025?
That's a good question.
Set your 25 goals.
We have got an absolute shitstorm next year in terms of like 2 stag do's, an engagement party, and 2 weddings in the space of 60 days at the start of the year. So surviving that, I'm kidding, making good memories, I think is something that when you asked me this the other night, I had to think about it. And I want to spend less time on my phone and more time like making memories, because I think there's a lot of times I found myself in a scroll hole or like sitting on the couch watching Netflix being like, I wish I could be doing something right now. I wish I could just like go out for a walk, like phone my mates, go to the pub, do something. Because I think I'm 27 now. I'm going to blink and I'll be 50 and I'll be going like, shit, I really didn't do that much. So making more memories, spending less time on my phone are my personal goals.
I think like memories, you can never get annoyed at spending money and time making memories.
Yeah.
Like, I know Jamie's just been to New York and it absolutely crippled him, but I know that he'll look back on the memories and be like, I don't care how much it cost me.
Yeah.
Like, that's a memory forever.
Yeah.
Same with anything. Like, I just went to Texas. Yeah.
If at the time of this coming out, I'll be probably 12 days away from a flight to Vegas. First
Okay.
day. So that memory is...
Oh, that's going to be good.
There might not be any memories.
Yeah, I was going to say, you come up with a few, but I don't know if you want those memories.
Gotta do that stuff though.
Vegas is awesome. I'm sure you'll have a great time. Okay, game 2 is going to be a game called Wrong Answers Only.
Oh, I love
5
this.
questions.
Love this.
You've got to answer as quickly as possible with wrong answers.
Okay.
What do you call someone who doesn't eat meat?
A bitch. Sorry.
Name any sport where you hit a ball over a net.
Ultimate Frisbee.
Who won the 2024 CrossFit Games?
Rich Froning.
Name a snack with less than 50 calories.
A deep fried Mars bar.
I'm going to clip that.
It's a snack.
I'm going to clip that. People don't know that you're doing wrong answers only.
This nutrition coach knows some things.
And which country can you go skiing in?
Ooh. Mexico.
Nice.
I was started thinking of all these. I said Dubai, and I'm like, you can ski in Dubai.
Yeah, you can.
So.
No, it's good. Going to finish with some latest news. So WOD Powders have just launched the strawberry and watermelon electrolytes, which are now live on the WOD Powders website. We've done this in collaboration with Chaz and Kilos. They're doing a thing which is quite fun called King of the Hill.
Okay.
And basically each Saturday they do a live stream on YouTube. They set a workout on Friday. People can then join the live stream to do the workout against them in real time, so streamed.
Nice.
So they have to set up a camera, like you do a qualifier for a comp. They do the workout against Chaz and Kilos live. If they beat them, then they get £50 and a tub of electrolytes from WOD Powders.
Nice.
And that's a weekly thing every Saturday.
Is that something that they're doing more of? Because that makes me think back to like the games before the games in lockdown where they all did like a live stream online. Is that happening more?
I don't think so. I think they've just come up with this idea as a way of
That's pretty good.
bringing in viewers to their YouTube, and I guess it's like they want people to try and beat them.
Yeah,
they want that challenge of like, I want to see if anyone can beat me in this workout.
That's so tough though, because you don't have them like, you don't know how many reps someone is on next to you. They're just on a tiny screen over there that you have to...
Yeah, I mean, they won't be able to look at how the other person's doing.
I like that though, because you probably have to be quite relentless in the
You just got to
workout.
go for it.
Like it.
Yeah. Lewin, a 15-year-old, won the IF International Fitness Federation, Functional Fitness Federation.
Nice.
It was a comp in Budapest. He is going to come on the podcast. He came...
You have to get him a high chair.
No, he's big.
He's tall, is he?
He's big.
Shit.
He's tall.
15.
He's 15.
Oh, wow.
I think he can clean and jerk 140.
I did that once.
Yeah, he's
So
an absolute
strong.
beast. Like, so I'm going to get him on the podcast in Jan. It's going to be good. And then January, I've also got Northern Champs.
Nice. That looks like a really cool comp.
It's not far from Durham. Well, it's pretty much Durham.
Yeah.
So you've got to come back.
Maybe, yeah, we'll go spectate. I think I'll spectate.
Maybe make a return.
Oh gosh, in the skilled category.
It's a good comp. Well, it's actually threes, same-sex threes. So WOD
Okay.
Powders have got 2 teams entered.
Nice.
I'm looking forward to that. Like, the girls should win. The guys have got some tough competition, but it'll be a good one to watch.
It's probably only getting bigger every year as well.
Oh yeah.
As terms of like, everyone's seen that, I'll go to that.
Yeah.
And there's a huge Scottish contingent who don't, like, they have to go basically to Leicester or somewhere to find a decent comp, other than Castle Games was always big, and now they've got Northern as well.
It's probably, I'd say you've got Proving Grounds in Glasgow.
Oh yeah, of course.
But
that's
minus
huge.
that, I would say you'd get a lot of Scottish athletes come down to a Northern Champs. I'm going to end with a random fact of the day. Now, I don't know if this is actually true, but my sister told me it with such
conviction
that I was like, why would she lie about this?
Yeah.
So she said that every single pigs in blanket sausage is manually, individually wrapped by hand, and there aren't machines that do it.
No, I can actually picture a machine that like is capable of doing that.
Well, this is what I thought.
Can't be true.
So my sister works for a sausage production company called Heck Sausages.
Yeah, they're just up. We drove past them.
Yeah. So they've asked every single manufacturer, like machine manufacturer, to make a sausage that puts the bacon around the sausages, and they couldn't get one.
That seems like something that's pretty doable. Like, even
That's
if
what I
you just,
thought.
Anyway,
I'm going to look into it.
yeah,
If anyone listening can prove me wrong, prove me wrong.
that's a YouTube wormhole that you could go. Like,
I think I'm going to have
sausage
to.
manufacturing.
If no one has a machine, I'm going to create a
you
machine
go.
that just like, because think how many pigs and blankets get eaten and sold every year.
Yeah,
But apparently Heck had the whole entire workforce manually putting bacon around sausages.
Do you want a collaborative fun fact?
Yep.
Cats meow to the same kind of sound that like a child would make, because they're smart enough to realize that when a child cries or screams, the owner's going to run over and like pick it up and look after it. So cats have learned to mimic that sound so that we'll pick them up and look after them.
So a cat meowing is like a baby crying, essentially. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Good fact. One of those facts that I'll never need to know, but that's good. And yeah, just to finish, where can people find you, social media, business, if you can just plug like
So if you type VRTU Health into Google, or you just go to virtuhealth.com, spelled the same, you'll find my website. I'll be under @Coach Alex Murphy with an underscore on Instagram, Alex Murphy on LinkedIn, Coach Alex Murphy on YouTube as well. You find some stuff there.
Cool. I'm definitely going to follow up with some further nutrition advice around comps and events.
Yeah.
But yeah, been wicked to have you on. Hope
Thank you
enjoyed
very
it.
much, mate. It's been very, very professional and
I have
enjoyable.
got a couple of gifts. I've got your WOD Pod t-shirt, which is done by NoRep,
Class.
and a Prep Kitchen bottle, which they're sponsoring every guest that comes
Fantastic.
on. So,
That's brilliant.
So you got with
Thanks
that.
so much
Thanks
for
for joining me.
Cheers.
I hope you enjoyed that episode, and a huge thank you for listening. Make sure you're following the pod on Instagram. The podcast is sponsored by WOD Powders. That's at WOD Powders on Instagram. Please show some support to the pod by either sharing this episode with a mate or buying some supplements from wodpowders.co.uk. See you guys next week.